Hello, everyone. Welcome back to Move for a Movement. I have Andrea Ziegelman here with me today. She is the founder and director of Accent Dance, based in New York City. She's also a child advocate lawyer, so she wears a lot of hats. Welcome, Andrea, and thank you so much for joining us.
Thank you for having me and for showcasing Accent Dance.
Oh, of course. I should have asked, do you prefer Andrea or Andrea? How do you pronounce it?
Depends on where you're from. I'm from the Midwest, so but I'm here in New York for 30 years, so whatever. As long as it's not for you, I'll respond.
That's so same with me. You know, if I understand that you're referring to me, it's all good.
Try to be flexible.
Yeah. So just to start to get an idea of what Accent Dance does, just to give a little bit of the mission statement and tease that out a little bit. Accent Dance's mission is to inspire youth through dance education, to enlighten through multicultural dance performances, and to empower through lasting community partnerships. So there's sort of three prongs there, right? Education, performance, and community connections and partnerships. Why are those three aspects sort of what is in particular important to what you and the company do? Why are those the focus, essentially?
Well, it's interesting because I think of us as a charitable organization, first and foremost, not as a company, a dance company in the traditional sense. And a charitable organization, you always start with this idea of mission. And in our mission really is to effectuate societal change, to improve, some sector of society. So these aspects, these prongs of our mission are all tied to this idea of how do we make something better in society. So in our particular case, all these three things are tied to inspiring children and communities, educating, empowering, championing diversity, and creating some bond among people that might not have a bond, to create a human bond among people. So, and we do this, and our mission is focused on children and families through dance in communities where they may not have access or ready access to the arts. And the idea of all three is really how do we make a lasting impact, not just an immediate performance, but something that's going to, continue. And with dance education aspects, it is in the schools. We do go into the schools and provide dance education either during the school day or after school. And the main goals there are really things that we want all of our children to have, and many children don't have when they don't have access to the arts. So some of the goals are to teach children how to express themselves, how to connect with others, how to innovate, how to collaborate, how to have better self-esteem, how to spark their creativity, for them to have better kinesthetic awareness, and overall to feel happy, to feel some joy and release. And so those are some of the goals of the dance education program. And we do this by also tying this to the educational goals. So how can we help children communicate better verbally as well as through dance? And so there's some tie to their school day. The other way that I think these things are tied together is, we have, you go into the schools, but you also go onto the stages and you go into the communities. So the way to go into the stages, but still to connect to the children, is to go into their schools and perform there. So our group, this multicultural group of professional dancers, will actually go into the school during the school day and perform on their stages. So we bring our own sound system, and we do different types of dance styles. So they'll see a ballet, how to do. They'll see hip hop. Sometimes they'll see hip hop dance mixed with ballet. They'll see some martial arts. They'll see tango. And we'll take the children through and explain to them the history of these different art forms and the cultural connections to different places. So they also get a lesson about geography, and we put in some context. So that is designed to excite them to say, wow, there's all this culture and we're part of that. And when we're in the Bronx, we focus on the art forms that have started there. So hip hop is celebrated, salsa, things that children can relate to say, wow, these are part of my cultures and look how they're created on the stage. The final prong, community partnerships, I think ties to the idea that you can't really help a community and children in a community without understanding something more broadly by partnering up with organizations. So in the South Bronx, we have a community partnership with one of the oldest arts organizations there, Casita Maria Center for Arts and Education. And the idea there is to have an ongoing dialogue with them to see what is it that their children need? What are they teaching them? How can we help them? How can we celebrate their culture? The same with the Poe Visitor Center in the South Bronx. We team up with the programming that they have there. So if they're studying Edgar Allan poetry with the children, then we'll do a dance program that ties into that. How do these two art forms work together? The Summer Streets Festival is in Manhattan, but it's outdoors, it's free. You know, this idea of open access to the arts. So all of these programming are designed to be either, you know, free or very low cost so that more people can enjoy it. So I do think that these three things are distinct, yet they're the mission really is one mission.
Love it. I'm intrigued by how you work with schools, because there's this very established system and you have to sort of come in with like benchmarks and curricula, and they have a very kind of set way of working. And some of that is shifting as you know, within the field of education, new ideas come in. But have you found it a challenge to kind of get the foot in the door with schools? And if so, how have you made that happen?
That's really true. I think getting a foot in the door during the day during the school day is much different than after school. We've been more, able to develop more programming after school because the rules are relaxed and the guidelines relaxed, which gives us more freedom to develop our own programming that, yes, it pulls on draws from the programming through Dell, which is the benchmark that is used in the schools, but it also draws on National Dance Institute ideas. And then we merge it and we take the best of those things and then develop our own, which depends on the group of kids, what demographics are, and what they might need in the moment. And so you have some more latitude and can be more creative in an after school program. And that's true both in, an arts organization like Casita Maria, where they're all after school, or where we're in the Mount Vernon in Westchester, where we are there in a regular school, or it's actually a charter school, but we're in their after school program. And again, it leaves some latitude to develop your own programming. But
Interesting.
at the same time, you want to be disciplined about, and having goals for the children, having a progression, and ultimately culminating on sometimes in some performance at the year end, so the children really see how they've taken all these skills and how they develop into actually performing. And we've seen some really withdrawn children who haven't been connecting to then when they're given, over a period of time, given the chance to perform. Like it's a revelation to see how that transforms some of the children that I'm sure they're very withdrawn in many ways in their life. And then to see them want to get on the stage and perform for their parents and their friends, it's really wonderful. So I think it is important to discipline yourself no matter what the program, to have a progression.
Right. Love it. Yeah, I was speaking with someone yesterday about this idea of welcoming in to the arts and to performance. There's this cultural idea of like, that's not for me. I'm a bad dancer. I'm not going to do that. I don't want to look stupid. But once you open that space and there's no judgment and there's a nurturing in the air, it's amazing what people will be open to and what they can do.
Exactly. And I think that that's so important that we give children that feeling that no one is judging them. In fact, one of the boys who we taught when we were on TV, we were on Pix 11, and the thing he said to the newscaster was, "No one's judging me. I can, I'm just, everybody's supporting me." Not, and that allowed, that allows all children to flourish if they feel that they're supported. And I mean, that's so much about what we're trying to create, is a nurturing environment where you can, feel free to explore and create. And everybody can do that. Everybody has an ability to express themselves. And if you feel confident, then you're more likely to do that. And dance just is a vehicle of expression. And it's one that any child can tap into. And no matter what kind of learner a child is, whether they're auditory learner, visual, dance, it affects all the senses. And, so you can tap in and, reach the children in different ways that maybe you can't in the traditional classroom.
I love that. Yeah, the different learning styles, right? Some people are kinesthetic learners, and you might think dance so kinesthetic, but there are those other sensory layers that can be ways in.
Exactly.
Where you have children, it's like when it's very visual or auditory, where they're being lectured at, that might not translate to how they learn, but dance might be able to reach them in a different way.
And it allows for flexibility to, and I know this from my work as a lawyer, that even as a lawyer, and you're relating to the children verbally, you have to sometimes let them draw. They come in and they want to express themselves in a drawing. Well, same with dance. There's different ways in, and there's no right or wrong. So it allows children maybe to explore a lot better with less judgment. Yeah.
I love these stories you're sharing of like concrete things you've seen. Yeah. And I'm curious with the multicultural awareness and education that the company seems very intentionally fosters. I'm curious if you've seen examples of that taking shape, of the kids like, oh, I didn't know that about this culture, or if they've said oh, that's where my family comes from, or sort of those connections, the effects you've seen there of that multicultural aspect. Love to hear if you have anything to share there.
Yeah, it comes through in different ways too. It comes through the dances that they see and the music that they hear. They can relate to it, or it's something new, but they still can relate to it because music is universal, just like dance. So even if it's not the music that they know, they can relate to it and appreciate it. And so, so much when you reach children before they have judgments about things, if they just enjoy it, then, you can tap into things that they might not believe that they, enjoy. And we like to play with that too, by merging different types of dance together so they can see how different people come together, different cultures come together, and we all can be different, and yet we can come together and create something new. And so we'll often in our creating dances, which are really done for the children, there's a focus on a very intentional focus on merging styles. So when we take a hip hop dancer and this amazing dancer that's doing twirls and jumps and popping and locking, and you combine that in the same piece with a ballet dancer who's dancing alongside of him, the children see that these things can really live together, and yet they're so different, and it's cool that it comes together. Or we've done a piece that, we were in the process of doing it before the pandemic came, where we combined a tap dancer with a ballet dancer and a hip hop dancer, and wanted to show the styles next to each other, how different they are, and yet, that these three people could come together and still collaborate and create a work together. And so the children see that. They also relate to the multiculturalism in terms of identity with the dancers, because we have dancers from all over the world, including Colombia and Cuba, Argentina, Japan, all these different places. And when they see the dancers who look like them, and they can identify, oh, I have somebody from Colombia or this, and then they're like, wow, I could do this too. This is part of my culture, and I see these professional dancers. So it just evolved that way. But I think it's really important that when you go into certain schools, that your dancers reflect the communities in which you're appearing. So that's interesting for them. And the dancers speak different languages. There's Spanish, French, and so they hear the different languages, and too, they feel like, oh, this is part of my culture and heritage and identity. And so the dancers are role models. So the questions that come out of that at the end, when we're done with a performance, are, they want to, ask about, do you feel like a family when you dance together? And, how did you get there? And when did you start? And like all these questions, because they connect to the dancers. So I think multiculturalism is reflected that way too.
Yeah. And along with that idea we were speaking about opening that opportunity to be engaged in art and to perform, and that welcoming, that invitation, that idea of this can be you too, right? It doesn't have to be that this white person doing ballet up on a stage that looks a certain way,
Yeah.
right? It is for everyone, no matter who you are, where your family comes from or what race you are. And that is such a, not a hot take, not an original take, that representation is important. But
You don't
I think,
often see that in ballet. So, our ballet dancers are from, our sort of really great ballet dancers, who perform Don Quixote or Le Corsaire for the kids. Elisa Torre-Franchi is from Colombia, and De Losada and is from, and Danis Gonzalez are from Cuba. So when they see the dancers there, I mean, this is still unusual in the ballet world to see that. So we bring that into the school, and at first I thought, well, the kids wouldn't be really interested in ballet, but when they see the dancers look like them, and then they see that, then especially the girl, they like come up and they want to touch the tutu, and like, when did you start dancing? And there's a lot of questions, and I feel good about that, because I feel like we've really not done that well with ballet, in particular. So
I love it. Love it.
yeah.
To step back,
Yeah.
I'm curious about the origin story. How did accent dance come to be?
Well, I feel you have to step way back inside, way back before you were born, like when I was a kid, and I'm 58 now, because I feel like this emanated from this opportunity that I was given when I was little to be involved in ballet, and to study music. I had a lot of professional musicians in my family. So I was obviously, I was able to be exposed to a lot of things, and I understood and appreciated the opportunities that I had. But I also grew up outside of Detroit, and Detroit is a very segregated city, or was at the time. And it was very clear to me that the opportunities that I had were not available to many children in many communities. And so the even as a young person, I think I was very aware, like, this is wrong. And my education and the things that I got growing up, I knew that that was not happening in the Detroit of my childhood. So fast forward, after many years, working in New York as a lawyer and working with children, but not necessarily in underserved communities, this finally this opportunity to maybe right a wrong that I had seen, an educational inequity, a privilege issue, that now the way it just sort of happened was happenstance, in the sense that I went back to ballet after many years, and my ballet teacher was one of the dancers of Accent Dance, Elisa Torre-Franchi, and we started talking about how she had been working in the school systems, and I thought, I had said, what, well, why don't we try to do this? Why don't we now try to go into the schools where they don't have access to the arts and make it happen? So just, and then she introduced me to her friends, and that were all, they're all friends, and they were all committed to this project. So it started that way. But it really was as a result of something that I saw personally that I wanted to change.
I love it. Thank you for sharing. That's beautiful how that personal experience shaped to become a mission, what you do today.
Yeah.
Yeah. I'm also curious about, you spoke a little bit about how you're also a child advocate lawyer.
Yeah.
And one might not think that law and dance are related, but I'm curious if your two sort of professional worlds, if they inform each other, how that comes together or it doesn't. Yeah, if you could speak to that.
Well, being a lawyer is being an advocate,
Mm,
a zealous advocate. That's something that we study in law school. That's important. One aspect of being a lawyer. Obviously, studying the rule of law, understanding that, being able to communicate. Yes, but at the heart of it is advocating for something, some cause, some persons, some injustice. And I think that the tie to this is that arts advocacy is similar to advocating for another kind of cause. It's just in this case, it's advocating for the importance of arts in people's lives and in the lives of children. And I think the greatest lawyers are those also who can make the audience or the judges or anyone understand the bigger societal issues that are at play. And the same with arts advocacy. So it's a similar set of skills, I believe, to advocate
mm,
for the arts, and just the way you do in journalism. And you use your voice, your ability to, and you have a wonderful journalistic voice. And you didn't make a great lawyer, but I'm glad you're doing something else. But it's a similar thing. It's like, how do we advocate for a larger community to make our voices heard in a way that's persuasive? And that's really what it is. It's persuasion.
mm,
And I think then of the programs that we've done recently, including an evening of advocacy with a Bronx
mm,
people, and how we combine showing dance, but also talking about it and its importance. The other
mhm,
thing, I think the connection for me, especially the educational connection, was that as a child advocate, my role is to articulate a child's needs and wishes. That's my
mm,
ethical obligation. So that means really listening to children, and then being able to really understand where they're coming from, that they have a voice, that we can express their needs and articulate their wishes. And I think that
mm,
arts advocacy, or going into a school and bringing this to children, really is also about really listening and understanding what they need, and then being able to express that or help them express it. So I see I know it's an unusual way into this, but at the same time, I think there is a connection.
definitely. I see it. I see it. And that's a lot for one person to handle. You got a lot on your plate. Um, what helps you to balance it all?
I don't balance it well, and the legal career has taken a back seat as accent dance has sort of evolved, and I think at least, well, even post pandemic, we'll talk about it, became more of a passion for me than practicing
Mm,
law. And at some
mm,
point, you cannot do everything. Like, if you think that
right.
you can, you can't. And so there was a point in time where I was not able to do everything full time, and I started to pull back on my legal work because I couldn't make everybody happy. And when everybody's angry at you, starting to yell at you, that you're like overextended, and you need to recognize that. And I think you do a lot of work in yoga and this. I think we need space in our life to slow down and do things well, and appreciate fully the moment. And you can't if you're just, I mean, that is a problem, but that's a problem for dancers too. Freelance dancers are running around from one thing to the next. It's no different than what I do if I try to juggle a brief with a dance performance.
Yeah.
But
Yeah. I find myself asking that to a lot of people because I feel like people in this field are, like you were saying, they're running around teaching, they're running this, they're doing this admin work, they're performing here and there, and they all have different tools for how they handle it. And you know what you're saying, there's a real wisdom there, I think, and I recognize that for myself at different points in my life. It's like yeah, it's something just has to give. I have to pull back on something because just logistically, feasibly, this does not work to do it all. It's just not going to happen. Yeah. And taking that moment of like introspection and awareness and just like seeing things objectively, like, okay, no, like, you know, so important to take that moment.
Sometimes you don't see it until it gets really out of control. And then you're like, whoa, this is not working. Right. It kind of happened for me a little bit with trying to practice law and do this.
Yeah. You brought up COVID. I am curious about, in this challenging time, certainly for artists, with how we do what we do, so changed, right?
Right.
How has the company shifted course to continue doing what you do at some capacity, in some sort of way?
I'm really I'm proud of what we've been able to do to keep to keep reaching the communities where we were in new communities. And I think dancers and artists are really good at this, not just us, but this idea of being able to create and be flexible and innovate is really at the heart of the arts, which is why I think it's so important for children to have it. So we pivoted to virtual residencies, dance residencies, where we were before. So the kids are on Zoom and we conduct our dance residencies that way. We continued our community engagement with Bronx Music Heritage Center, where we had performed live, but now we created documentaries on film. We created a film about the life of Hector Lavoe. And so the dancers we all had to learn how to create and do interviews with some of these musicians that had been with him, and then show the dance works that tied to his music. We were involved in the Battery Dance Festival, which was virtual this year. We gave Zoom dance classes to healthcare workers at Columbia Presbyterian, and we want to continue to do that because we're like, well, they're in need. There's a lot of stress there. How can we give back to the community? We created a film this summer that was shown. It was a dance film to honor a rural community in upstate New York. So it was supposed to have been a live performance, but we converted it into all the dancers who could get together, who were part of the same family, created and filmed themselves, and we created a whole evening of dance about cultural convergence again, and the idea being to reach a community that might feel marginalized, and how can they feel part of this experience. We're also on BronxNet TV every week. We have a dance class that runs, just a movement class for adults to keep people doing it, and you don't have to pay for that. We reached out to our friends and dancers all over the world to create a global dance video where kids from everywhere, including very far off places, could come together and create a work that we show. And most recently, we're filming with New York Times videographer Angela Vasta, a kind of a virtual version of what we do in the schools, where we film dances, diverse dances all around the city in iconic places, in front of Lincoln Center, in Harlem, Spanish Harlem, and the dances take place in these locations. And then we're going to interweave an educational component. And then our goal is to sort of disseminate to the schools where we've been and to new places, so that educators can show the work and then do Q&As with the artists. So even if the kids are in online settings, the idea is, how do we reach them? They're so isolated now. How do we still keep them engaged with the art? So that's our hope with that last project. And it's really beautifully filmed, and we want to make it, you can't just show straight dance where beginning to end you show the piece. You have to make it a creative film. So we're putting that together now.
Been busy.
Yeah,
I love it. Gotten so much
out
there.
There's not a lot of money there, but you got to make each dollar count.
In the arts, never enough money, and
right. Right.
Arts admins that know how to stretch a dollar.
Right.
Dancers, yeah, right. Performers,
And
yeah.
the dimes and the pennies.
Right. I love that idea of the documentary, because there's just so much rich history, tradition, and legacy in dance, and in traditional American school history classes. You learn about wars and about presidents, and there's just cultural history isn't so much at the center, but as we've been saying, art is just so crucial to what we do in life, and to how we share culture, and spend time with each other. And
Well,
it's just
right.
to spread that knowledge. It's beautiful.
Well, how do we study history? I mean, I see that you were an art historian. You study that in school, and I too took art history when I was in University of Michigan, and I was like, what a great way to study history, because it was through paintings, and for me as a visual person, I could retain information about the historical period by seeing the art. Like, and this is again, how do children learn? And like, just in a vacuum, when we just throw them history and it's not connected to anything, it's really hard to retain or feel connection. But if you tie it to the paintings of the time, or the dance of the time, or the music of the time, it just adds a richness. And I don't, I think to disconnect the arts from learning, it really doesn't make sense to me. Children will learn better if they have that part of their curriculum. And that's part of the advocacy work that we want to, do, to say, you need to make this part of every curriculum. STEAM education is important. Yay! Woo!
Woo! Love it. And Accent Dance is doing that work, right? Putting that STEAM education out there.
Well, we are.
Yay!
But, we're also you've got to do it with everybody else, and you have to bolster everybody else's work and feel that this is part of a larger, advocacy work, that we alone can't do it. But if we're all doing it and we're inspiring other people to do it, there's energy in that, and we have to be together on that. We can't do it individually, We
Many
want
hands.
Yeah, and I think it's important. We wanted to, but this takes grant money, is to really in the dance programming to we started to hand out surveys to the children before the program starts and after, to track their, the impact of the program on them. And I really like to do more of that, because that's how, you get more funding, and that's how you get into more schools. If there's more empiric evidence, and there is a lot already, but the more that's done that way in more communities, I think that, their money should be behind that, to do that kind of.
Right. 100%. Yeah. So a lot of wonderful stuff you've done through COVID, all considered. What can audience members look forward to, follow, support, etc., with the company coming up?
Well, you can tune into BronxNet TV every week at 7 p.m. and, just Google bronxnet.org and take a dance class. You can go follow us on Instagram and our website. Reach out to us and tell us what you're doing. If you know of schools that are interested in bringing art into their communities now while we're virtual learning, reach out to us, and we'll partner with you, and advocate generally for the arts and for children. It doesn't have to be just follow us, but be more involved in that, and to watch more. And if you can donate to any organization, do it. Ones that or new ones. There's a lot of people out there doing great work, not just our organization. So just do whatever it is that inspires you, but do something.
100%. I love it. And we'll put all that information up for people to follow and to learn more. So go ahead and learn more about Accent. Support their work, or anyone, like you said.
And support what you're doing. You're an advocate too, and your journalistic work is so important too. And I've read many of the articles that you've done, and that should be, the forefront too of communicating to people the importance of it, the beauty of it, what other artists are doing. It's so important what you do. So
Thank you. I try. I try to be an advocate.
you are.
Yeah, thank you. Anything else you want to share before we say so long?
Oh, no, I think that's it. And I appreciate the opportunity and it's great to connect and to you, have human connection and fellow, artists. It's important that we have these things. So thank you for making it happen.
My pleasure. My pleasure. All righty. Thank you so much, everyone, for joining in. Thank you again, Andrea, for joining us today. Please like, subscribe, comment, let us know what you think. Share it with someone who you think would be interested. And we will see you next time.
Bye-bye.
Bye. Thank you.